There is a bag of grass seed on my garage shelf right now. $48. Last September, my neighbor bought the exact same bag, spread it across his front yard on a Saturday, watered it Sunday and Monday, then went back to work. By the middle of October, he was standing in the same thin, patchy lawn he started with. He did not buy bad seed. He did not buy too little. He missed one step, and that step turned $48 into nothing. So here is the entire method, right now, before anything else. Mow the lawn down to 1.5 inches and bag the clippings. Rake hard enough to expose bare soil. Spread the correct amount of seed, which is far less than you think. Rake again, lightly, so every seed touches dirt instead of sitting on dead grass. Put down a starter fertilizer. Then water lightly 2 or 3 times a day, every day, for 2 solid weeks. That is the whole thing. 4 of those steps are easy. 1 is where almost everybody quits, and I will tell you which one, with the watering measured in minutes so you are not guessing. I will also show you the one word on the back of the seed bag that tells you whether you are buying grass or buying a plant engineered to die inside a year, and about the timeline in the title. 14 days is when you see green, and I will tell you exactly what that morning looks like. A lawn that looks finished is closer to 30 days. Both numbers are in here, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. Let us start with why you are doing this now instead of in April. Grass seed needs 2 things that almost never happen together: warm soil to germinate, and cool air so the seedling does not cook once it comes up. In spring you get cold soil and warming air, which is backwards. The seed sits there, and just as the young plant gets going, June arrives and cooks a seedling, with roots 1/2 inch deep. Right now you have the opposite. Soil is still loaded with summer heat, so germination is fast. Air is cooling, so the seedling is comfortable. And crabgrass, the thing that steals every open patch in your yard, is finished germinating for the year. It is not competing with you anymore. There is one more advantage nobody mentions. Grass you seed now gets a full fall of root growth, goes dormant, then wakes up and gets an entire second season before it ever faces real heat. Spring-seeded grass gets about 10 weeks before it gets punished. Fall-seeded grass gets 9 months, so the season is right. Whether this specific week is right for your yard is a different question, and it is not the same answer in Minnesota as it is in Tennessee. Forget the calendar, and forget what your neighbor is doing. One rule works everywhere. Your seed goes in the ground at least 45 days before your average first frost date. Look that date up on your local extension site, which takes 30 seconds, and count backwards 45 days. In the northern part of the country, that usually lands between the middle of August and the middle of September. Through the transition zone, Ohio and Pennsylvania and Missouri and down into Virginia and Tennessee, you have until roughly the first week of October. The seedling needs that long to germinate, then push roots deep enough that when the ground freezes and thaws over winter, it does not get heaved right out of the soil. Penn State Extension says the single most common cause of overseeding failure is planting too late. Not bad seed, not bad technique. Too late. If you want to be precise, buy a soil thermometer, about $10. Push it 2 inches down in the morning. You want soil between 50 and 65 degrees. If it is still at 75 in the afternoon, wait a week. Before you spend $1, one quick test decides whether you should be overseeding at all. Walk into the worst part of your yard and look straight down at your feet, not across the lawn, because looking across always makes it look better than it is. If more than half of what you see is still real grass, and the problem is that it is thin and tired, overseeding is exactly right. But if more than half is weeds, clover, or bare dirt, overseeding will disappoint you. The weeds will outgrow the seedlings, and next spring you get the same weed patch with a greener tint. That yard needs a full renovation, which means killing everything first. Different job. While you are thinking about that, do me a favor. In the comments, tell me what state you are in, and whether you have overseeded before and how it went. The timing shifts a lot between zones, and if I can see where you all actually are, the next one gets more useful. If you tried this and it failed, say so. That is worth more to me than the success stories. Now, the seed bag. Turn it over. There is a white rectangle of fine print on the back. That is the seed tag. It is required by law, and it is the only honest thing on the entire bag. Look at the list of what is in there. If you see the words annual ryegrass, put the bag down and walk away. Annual ryegrass comes up in 5 days, bright green and fast. It makes the first 2 weeks look like a triumph, and then it dies. It is an annual. It is designed to die. It is in cheap mixes for exactly that reason. Perennial ryegrass is a completely different plant and it is excellent. 1 word apart, and one of them costs you the season. Then 2 numbers. Germination percentage, which you want at 85 or higher, and the test date. If that seed was tested more than about a year ago, it has been losing viability in a warehouse and you are buying dead weight. Glance at the weed seed line too. You want it near 0, because anything there is something you will spend next summer killing. 2 bags on the same shelf, one at $24 and one at $48, can hold wildly different amounts of actual living grass. The cheap one is not cheaper. It is smaller in disguise. Now, how much do you need? This is where I have to correct something expensive. Overseeding is not planting a new lawn, and it does not take the same amount of seed. Every extension service that has studied this lands in the same place, about half the rate of a new lawn. For turf-type tall fescue, which is what most of you have, 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet. The University of Maryland says 4. A new lawn would take 6 to 8. Kentucky bluegrass, about 2 pounds. Perennial ryegrass, 4 to 5. Here is the counterintuitive part. Double the rate because more seed sounds like a thicker lawn, and you get the opposite. Every seedling competes with the one beside it for the same water and light. Crowded seedlings grow tall and weak with shallow roots, and half of them die in the first heat wave next summer. You do not get a thick lawn. You get a dense mat of weak grass and a bill for twice the seed. Measure your yard. Pacing it off is fine. Then apply the correct rate, and only the correct rate. Now the actual work. Starting with your mower, drop it as low as it goes without scalping, around 1.5 inches, probably half your normal height, and bag the clippings. Do not mulch. The existing grass is now short, so sunlight reaches all the way to soil level where your seed will sit, and it is temporarily less competitive, which gives seedlings a window before the mature grass shades them out. This is the one mow of the entire year where cutting short is correct. Next, thatch, and here I disagree with most of the internet. Thatch is the layer of dead stems between the green grass and the soil. Nearly every overseeding video tells you to dethatch or power rake first. For most lawns, that is unnecessary work that does real damage. Here is how you find out. Cut a wedge out of your lawn with a spade, 3 inches deep, and pull it out like a slice of cake. Look at the side. Green grass on top, then a brown spongy layer, then dirt. Measure the brown layer. Under 1/4 inch, hard raking is enough. Up to 1/2 inch, a good stiff raking still gets you there. Over 1/2 inch, you have a real problem and you need a verticutter, which is a rental and a much bigger job. Most lawns I look at are under 1/4 inch. Most people rent a power rake they did not need, tear up healthy turf, and wonder why the lawn looked worse before it looked better. Same honesty on aeration. Core aeration genuinely helps if you have heavy clay, high foot traffic, or soil so hard you cannot push a screwdriver into it. If that is you, aerate and seed immediately, because those holes give perfect soil contact. But if you can push a screwdriver in without leaning on it, aeration is optional. If the choice is renting an aerator or buying better seed, buy the better seed every time. Let me stop for one thing, and then we get to the step that decides all of this. Everything I just told you about thatch and aeration, and everything coming about watering, Cost me 3 seasons and a lot of wasted seed. Because nobody publishes the version where you skip the expensive step. I put the whole calendar in one place at backyardverdict.com, week by week, so you are not trying to remember which thing happens in which month. There is a QR code on screen if that is easier than typing. That is the only time I will bring it up. Spreading the seed. Load half of what you measured and walk the whole yard in one direction. Then load the other half and walk it again, perpendicular to the first pass. Never do it in one pass. One pass gives you stripes, and stripes become light and dark bands you will stare at until next summer. And now the step. This is the one my neighbor missed. Grass seed does not germinate in air, it germinates against soil. A seed that lands on top of dead grass is sitting in a pocket of air. It absorbs water, it swells, it starts to sprout. Then the sun comes out for 4 hours and it dries completely and dies. There is no pause button on a germinating seed. Once it starts and then dries, it is gone. So after you spread, go back over the whole lawn with a leaf rake held almost flat and drag it lightly across the surface. You are not raking. You are barely disturbing the top 1/8 of an inch. You are knocking those seeds down through the canopy so they touch dirt. If you want to do it properly, top dress instead. A 1/4 inch of screened compost or peat moss over the seeded areas. A 1/4 inch, not an inch. You should still see grass blades poking through. That thin layer holds moisture right at the seed, and it is the difference between watering 3 times a day and twice. Bury seed deeper than a 1/4 inch and it never reaches the surface. Leave it on top of thatch and it never germinates. That 1/4 inch window is the entire job. Starter fertilizer next. Every bag has 3 numbers: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, in that order. For an established lawn, you want the first number high. For seeding, you want the middle number high, because phosphorus drives root development in a new plant. Look for something like 18, 24, 12, or 20-27-5. Apply at the rate on the bag, at seeding or within the first week. One real note: several states restrict phosphorus on lawns, and in almost every one of them, seeding is the written exception, because that is when the plant actually needs it. So do not skip starter fertilizer because you read that phosphorus is banned. And now the trap. This wastes more seed than anything else on the list, and it happens to people who are trying to be responsible. Keep pre-emergent herbicide away from this project. Pre-emergent does not know the difference between a crabgrass seed and a fescue seed. It blocks germination. All germination, for 8 to 12 weeks. So if you applied one in the last 8 to 12 weeks, your seed is not coming up no matter how perfectly you do everything else in this video. Check the bag you used and find the reseeding interval on the label. And if you are overseeding this fall, skip fall pre-emergent entirely. You cannot have both. One exception: a product called Tenacity, active ingredient mesotrione, is labeled for use at the time of seeding on certain cool season grasses. Read the label for your specific grass, because fine fescue is a known exception and it will damage it. If you are not sure what you have, skip it. Now the part that actually decides this, and it is not glamorous. For the first 7 days, your only job is that the top 1/4 inch of soil never dries out. Not once, not for one afternoon. Light and frequent, not deep and occasional. Everything you have been told about watering deeply and infrequently is correct, and it is completely wrong right now. Your seed has no roots. It cannot reach down. It can only use the water in that top 1/4 inch. So 2 to 3 times a day, 5 to 10 minutes each. Morning, early afternoon, and if it is hot, late afternoon. Never in the evening, because grass sitting wet overnight invites fungus. You want the surface consistently dark and damp, not puddled, damp. If you work during the day, buy a hose timer, $20, and it saves you the entire cost of the seed. It is the highest return purchase in this whole project. Around day 7 to 10, if you used ryegrass or fescue, you will see it. It does not look like grass yet. It looks like a faint green haze, like the lawn is slightly out of focus. Get down on your knees and you will see individual threads. That is it working. By day 14, the haze has become visible. New grass, thin and light green, maybe an inch tall. That is your 14-day mark, and that is honestly what it looks like. Not a finished lawn. Proof. If you have Kentucky bluegrass in your mix, it takes 14 to 30 days to germinate, not 7 to 10. It has always been. So if part of your lawn comes up at day 10 and part looks empty at day 16, do not panic and do not reseed. The bluegrass is still coming. Once seedlings are up, around day 8 to 10, go from 3 short cycles down to 2, but run them longer, maybe 15 minutes. You are teaching those roots to reach deeper instead of living on the surface. By day 20, once a day. By day 30, every other day at a full deep cycle. Around day 21, your new grass hits 3 inches, and it is time for the first mow. Sharp blade, because a dull one rips young grass out by the roots instead of cutting it. Mow high, 3 inches or more, and never take more than a third of the blade height. Do not mow before day 21, even if it looks tall enough. Those roots are not anchored yet. Then 4 to 6 weeks after seeding, feed it again, this time with the first number high. This fall feeding is the most valuable fertilizer application of the entire year for a cool season lawn. Cool airs leaf growth while roots keep working so that nitrogen goes into roots and stored energy instead of blades you have to mow. It is what makes your lawn green up fast next April. By day 30, standing at the edge of your driveway, it should look like a lawn. Not a perfect one, but thicker, more even, and nothing like what you are standing on right now. Some of you will be out there on day 16 looking at dirt, so let me cover that. If nothing came up, it is almost always one of 5 things. It dried out, which is the cause most of the time. It washed away, which happens on slopes. It was buried too deep from raking too hard. The seed was old, which is why you check that test date. Or there was pre-emergent in the soil. Figure out which one, because the fix is different for each. And if it was the watering, that is not the method failing. That is the method telling you what it costs. So here is your weekend. Friday, check your frost date and confirm you are inside 45 days. Measure the yard. Buy seed by the label, not the front of the bag, at 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet for fescue. Buy a starter fertilizer with a high middle number. Buy a hose timer. Saturday morning, mow at 1.5 inches and bag it. Rake hard until you see soil. Check your thatch with a spade before you rent anything. Saturday afternoon, spread half the seed one direction and half the other. Rake lightly, or top dress a 1/4 inch of compost. Put down the starter fertilizer. Set the timer. Then for 14 days you do nothing except keep that top 1/4 inch damp. That is the whole commitment. Total cost for a typical yard runs around $80 to $120, most of it seed. Compare that to what a service charges for the same job. One last thing. Come back around day 14 and tell me what you are seeing. Green haze, patchy, or nothing at all. Somebody is going to scroll into these comments next September looking for exactly that. And what happened in your yard is worth more to them than anything I can say. Go check your frost date. If you are inside 45 days, this weekend is the weekend.